By the way, Russian officials were surprised by Trump turning to praise them so hard. According to Wall Street Journal, after 3 days of American efforts to isolate Russia, 3 years of American efforts to isolate Russia, U.S. policy took a significant shit towards Moscow in recent days. Russian officials have cheered the change, but even they appeared to be caught off guard by the speed of developments. On Tuesday, they were like, we did not foresee this level of glaze, which is understandable. It is pretty crazy. It is definitely like there was a shift that I think was appropriate, that I think the Biden administration should have engaged with as well, which is to not instantly say like, no, we're never going to have any kind of talks with Vladimir Putin at all. But of course, because the Biden administration was allergic to doing any sort of diplomacy there, even though, yes, what Russia is doing is objectively evil. Okay, please don't fucking yell at me about this. You know what my position is. The Trump administration took that opportunity to be like, hey, by the way, Vladimir Putin is awesome and Zelensky is the real evil villain in this story. It's psychotic. Not only is it psychotic, but it's just wrong. It's objectively wrong. Anyway, 3 years of American efforts to isolate Russia, U.S. policy took a significant shift. On Tuesday, top-level U.S. and Russian officials met in Saudi Arabia to discuss the ways to settle the war in Ukraine and reset Washington's relations with Moscow, just days after President Trump and President Vladimir Putin spoke by phone. Then, a war of words escalated between Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, with the U.S. president calling him a dictator on Wednesday, which is, again, kind of funny because, you know, the other side, like if Zelensky was more of a dictator, I think Trump would like him. If Zelensky was like a full-blown dictator, I think Donald Trump would genuinely like him. He's not exactly, he's... No Ukrainian leadership historically has been a infallible and uncorrupted group of people that want to do what's right by Ukrainians or whatever. But like, having said that, I think obviously Vladimir Putin is infinitely closer to that term than Zelensky is. Axios scoop. U.S. and Ukraine discuss improved minerals deal after Trump raged at Zelensky. Nice. All right. But before we get to that, let's take a look at Donald Trump and how angry the Trump dick riders are that Zelensky dare get mad.
All right, President Trump not mincing words with Ukrainian President Zelensky as the U.S. tries leading negotiations with Russia to end the war.
The only thing he was really good at was playing Joe Biden like a fiddle. He played him like a fiddle. That's an expression we use. A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Got to move fast because that war is going in the wrong direction. In the meantime, we're successfully negotiating an end to the war with...
What? It also feels a bit like American exceptionalism when this entire chat and you keep dunking on EU whenever Ukraine comes up. I can understand some of it, but I also think you're wrong. I'm thinking EU isn't capable of supporting Ukraine on its own. And I also think EU is willing to do so. The peace talks in Riyadh won't accomplish anything. It's all bluff and show from Trump. He doesn't understand how dogged Ukraine and EU are on this. Okay, if you say so. I don't think you're right about this. But maybe you are. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be nice. I'm going to be nice about this. EU guys on this chat are very intense. Yeah. EU guys love hitting the EU lion too, sir. Why don't you think he's right? I don't know. Because even fucking Keir Starmer when he was like, "Yeah, we'll be committed to defending Ukraine ourselves if America doesn't do it." We'll immediately turn around and go, and it's actually it amounts to nothing if America is not a part of the security cooperation in the same sentence. So I've yet to hear anything other than like paper tiger posturing from European leadership about security commitments to Ukraine without America being the primary party that will guarantee. The guarantor of security always is the United States of America. Is the USA unable to end the war and Ukraine not lose any land? Yes. I don't think that I don't foresee any situation where Russia doesn't take annexed land. It would take at least 5 years for the EU to be able to support Ukraine without America. I don't think. What is this? I'm glad he's found peace and not doing movies or TV shows anymore. Zachary Levi is reflecting on why he felt it was more important to be candid about his support for Donald Trump than worry about his career. I felt peace because I knew that this was more important than saving my career. Yeah, your career. Okay, big dog. All right.
Russia.
So President Zelensky firing back.
A red EU will rise. The sun is shining and fuck USA EU bloc. Okay. Listen, if Europe turns around and finds themselves aligned with China, okay, I will have a very different attitude. Okay. You got a new a new network of Axis powers. Okay. Growing fascist movements in European countries as well. And then EU says, no, we are defending socialism. We are defending what remains of progressive policies. And we're going to do that. We're going to get militant again. But this time, you know, we're no longer on the side of America, and America is the Nazi Germany in this equation. And we are going to join forces, and we are going to be the ally. We are going to be the allied forces alongside with the Chinese Communist Party, and we're going to fight fascists again. I mean, we're making shit up. I might as well make shit up further. You know what I mean? Why would they defend a proven failed ideology? See? I like that. I like that you're saying that while simultaneously, I already said like the Chinese Communist Party, as in like, is China bad because they're communist? Does that mean there's existing socialism in the universe that the European forces could align with? You know?
Calling Trump's comments.
Was China's stance on Ukraine? I mean, China benefits greatly from, or not benefits greatly, but China doesn't like the instability either, but at least like, you know, they see it as like their ally penetrating the Western hegemony. But they also have maintained a position that I think is even more aggressive than America, as like the primary party backing the Russian side. Where they've said time and time again, like, you got to dial this back to Russia, and also have said we have to get to the table and do a ceasefire instantly. I don't know if they like how much Russia and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea also link up either. Okay? You shit on NATO, but you also go, EU ain't shit without USA, and pretend you don't understand why EU frogs back NATO. Yeah, but the EU frogs that back NATO also simultaneously think the European Union will be able to mount a defense against any kind of power united, and they'll be able to single-handedly defend Ukraine or some shit. I don't know what the fuck is going on there. There's a reason why they're pro-NATO.
It's Russian disinformation, prompting Vice President Vance to respond. The idea that Zelensky is going to change the president's mind by bad-mouthing him in public media, everyone who knows the president will tell you that is an atrocious way to deal with this administration. Here to react, Trump National Security Advisor Michael Waltz. Michael, fresh off your peace mission with Russia over in Riyadh, want to get to that in a moment, but your sense of the fractured relationships now between President Zelensky and President Trump?
Well, Brian, there's obviously a lot of frustration here. Vice President Vance was very frustrated leaving the Munich Security Conference. Our Secretary of Treasury, who traveled all the way to Kyiv, is also frustrated, all on top of the president, obviously, who makes his frustration well known. And that's because we presented the Ukrainians really an incredible and historic opportunity to have the United States of America co-invest with Ukraine, invest in its economy, invest in its natural resources, and really become a partner in Ukraine's future in a way that's sustainable, but also would be, I think, the best security guarantee they could ever hope for, much more than another pallet of ammunition. And so to have the United States co-invested, to grow their pie, to allow their economy to flourish over time, and, oh, by the way, to have the American taxpayer recoup the hundreds of billions of dollars, as the Europeans do, all makes sense. Why we're getting this pushback, and certainly this kind of, as the vice president said, bad-mouthing in the press for all the administration.
Also, this is the American position. Many chatters have asked me what the Chinese position is. In May 2024, there was a Brazilian-Chinese 6-point plan that was put forth. Remember, China is the party backing, is the large superpower backing Russia in this equation. In May 2024, the Brazilian and Chinese governments proposed a 6-point plan. Non-escalation, direct negotiation, an international peace conference accepted by both Russia and Ukraine, and discussion of all peace plans, humanitarian assistance, exchange of prisoners of war, no attacks on civilians, no use of weapons of mass destruction, no attacks on nuclear power stations, respect for the Convention on Nuclear Safety, stable global trade. Two sides call for efforts to enhance international cooperation. You are aware about the anti-Zionist rabbis that got hit by pro-Israeli media is lying about it again. This is the new era of false flag ops in the U.S. Sorry for derailing. Yes, I don't know anything that you're talking about, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, maybe we'll get to that later. Okay. Currency, finance, trade, food security, security for critical infrastructure, including oil and gas pipelines, undersea optical cables, electricity, energy facilities, fiber optic networks, so as to protect the stability. And as far as I understand, even Zelensky was, according to the Kyiv Independent, Zelensky was open to integrating China's and Brazil's proposals into the peace formula around October 27th. Okay? Why didn't they? Another ship plan without Ukraine? Wait, what are you talking about? This plan literally says Ukraine gets a seat at the table. And not only that, but you also then said, why didn't they impose this plan on their ally Russia? This is them saying this is their position on their ally Russia. You asked me what the Chinese plan for Ukraine is, or what the Chinese statements have been, China's position on the political settlement of the Ukrainian crisis. And I'm telling you what it is by using fucking Wikipedia. And you're over here still yelling about it. I don't know what you want me to do. This is yet another instance where Donald Trump comes across as a madman, and whether or not people have a lot of resentment and hatred for the Chinese government is, once again, coming across as more reasonable. China, at the end of the day, does not have the same level of control over Russia as America has over Israel, for example, or as America has over Ukraine. So with the limited amount, I mean, they do have a lot of influence, I think. But with the amount of influence that they have, this is what they've sought to use that influence for. Anyway. What is the position of the typical American? I think the typical American position on this is they don't give a shit and they don't want to give any more money to Ukraine because they've been propagandized in many different ways, but also because Americans just don't like giving endless weapons overseas or money overseas to endless conflict. That's why they have a very similar position on Israel too. Not that it fucking matters, because let's be real, foreign policy is not dictated. No, don't say except for Israel. You think Americans broadly like giving unlimited weapons to Israel? Are you crazy? America is becoming more and more anti-Semitic every single day as a direct consequence of our unlimited allegiance to Israel. Literally every day. And Israel also consistently lying and pairing up their violent actions with Judaism. There was already plenty of anti-Semitism that existed, but now it's, this kind of shit is growing that attitude. Conservatives might not talk too much, at least like conservative mouthpieces might not talk too much about giving money to Israel. And Donald Trump certainly doesn't talk about that either, obviously, because he loves giving money to Israel, because he's gotten money from Miriam Adelson. Okay. But if you were to ask like the average American, I mean, there's a million different polls conducted on this process. Even Republicans have been in favor of a ceasefire and conditional aid or stopping weapons transfers.
Has done in his first term as well, and all the United States has done for Ukraine is it's unacceptable. They need to tone it down and take a hard look and sign that deal.
So, do you believe that this is reconcilable? Do you believe that this is two people just getting mad at each other, or do you think these are...
Not to drag this combo because I agree with you 90%, but I would like to point out that you can't simultaneously hold a position that the EU ain't shit, which is true, because the EU have had U.S. protection for decades, has not been needed, and won't drift from U.S. vassalage, and also point out that the EU is drifting fascist. The former is accelerating the latter. Okay, you said you agree with me 90%, and then the 10% you also agree with me on. Unless I misunderstood. Yes, America is very much responsible post-World War II for any kind of nascent fascist movement existing in Europe, specifically Western Europe. What do you think we are? We're fucking fascist too. What do you mean? What is advocacy for mass deportations of undocumented migrants and trying to desperately erase trans people out of existence? What is that, if anything, but fascism? Such a lefty, degen lefty take, Keck W. Yeah, I know you haven't seen the victims that are stuck in a hotel in Panama City, for example, or the thousands of people that are getting rounded up and being sent to Guantanamo Bay in a concentration camp right now. But just because it's invisible to you doesn't mean it's not happening. Okay? It is infinitely more degenerate to actually do those violent things for no discernible reason than to correctly call that fascist. You can culp all day, every day. You can literally deport every single undocumented migrant. Your life is still going to suck dick and balls, okay? Ottoman Empire ain't coming back. Ali Akbar? What? Ottoman Empire? So you want illegals to stay? Yes. I want them to no longer be illegal. I want them to be processed. Very mentally stable chatter. Yeah.
They're two countries going different ways.
Oh, I think so. The president also said how much he loves the Ukrainian people. And again, he was the first to arm them back in his first term. We've done a lot for the security of Ukraine. And to say that we're going to change the nature of our aid going forward is, I don't think, should offend anyone. Look, the president is ready to drive this war to an end. He has made that clear over and over again. And just a week ago, Brian, he had both President Putin on the phone and Zelensky on the phone, literally within minutes of each other. And both were saying, only you, President Trump, can lead this war to a conclusion when no one else has been able to. And in fact, the last administration didn't even really try. So now President Trump is doing what he should as a leader and pushing hard diplomacy with strength and leadership. And, you know, no one should be surprised about that.
Right. In terms of President Zelensky, his approval rating's around 54%. And
wait a minute, Brian. But Donald Trump said his approval rating was at 4%. Now you're telling me that President Zelensky has a higher approval rating than Donald Trump? What's going on? This doesn't make any sense.
He can't really have
I'm stupid. What does that mean?
elections while he's at war. That's in their constitution. And it seems as though they...
By the way, the reason why he's saying that, okay, just make no mistake, is because foreign policy at the end of the day is uniparty, okay? Yeah, so Donald Trump can speak out of both sides of his mouth on this issue, but look, you see, the loyals, the loyals are still like, yeah, well, of course Zelensky can't actually maintain and have elections like... I mean, this is directly the opposite of what Donald Trump is claiming. It's a complete lie. Donald Trump's statements are ridiculous on the issue. And under every other circumstance, people like Brian Kilmeade will go along with that lie. So why is it that in this situation, they're not going along with it and just basically doing a little bit of ass covering?
Both sides understood that until yesterday. What do you see your role going forward as early as today? Maybe to get the two on the phone?
Well, look, this notion that the Ukrainians haven't been consulted, I have to push back on that, Brian. I've been talking to his national security advisor, Zelensky's national security advisor, on a regular basis. We just mentioned the meetings both Secretary of State and Vice President Vance have had with him. Special Envoy Keith Kellogg is out there literally right now. So we have had plenty of engagement and dialogue in order to drive this deal home, this economic partnership, and move forward towards peace. And also for our European friends, look, we have President Macron of France coming next week. We have Prime Minister Starmer of the United Kingdom coming next week. I spoke with all of their national security advisors, including Germany's, yesterday. So we are consulting our allies. We're consulting the Ukrainians. There's a term for this in diplomacy. It's called shuttle diplomacy, because bringing everybody to the table at once just hasn't worked in the past. So we've engaged one side, we've engaged the other side, and then we're going to have a process moving forward under President Trump's direction and leadership.
And as you know, a lot of Democrats kind of hit the roof with all this back and forth. Listen.
It has been remarkable to watch Donald Trump line up with Putin so directly that it's almost as if Putin writes his talking points.
This feels like one of the, the biggest kind of American surrender since Vietnam.
The mental gymnastics that you see Republicans undertaking to somehow justify the unjustifiable.
Republicans, at this point, have power to change what Trump is doing if they can find their spines. And it may be the whole country's job to help them find it.
And your retort.
I'm not gonna lie. I foresee this backfiring. Like, I really think that there is an appropriate way to talk about it in terms of like wanting peace. Like, they should literally always emphasize that peace is the appropriate measure here. And I don't think the Democrats are doing that. Backfiring on who? I think this will backfire on liberals, Democrats in general. That's how I see it. And then Donald Trump will, while simultaneously dick riding Vladimir Putin into oblivion, will still turn around and say, like, see, I did this. I achieved this. The Democrats want endless war. That's what he's going to keep saying. That's what he has said. And it worked. It literally worked. It worked in the election in favor of Donald Trump. Their inability to read the room is alarming in this situation. Libs are right about Russiagate. I don't think they were correct about Russiagate in general, but they are right about Donald Trump personally fucking loving Vladimir Putin. I think that Donald Trump genuinely loves authoritarian strongmen. He does. He even loves fucking Kim Jong-un. I mean, it's obvious. He respects them. He wants to be like them. I don't think they want the war to end. I just think they want to say Ukraine is preventing peace like they had done with Gaza and Hamas not agreeing to peace deals when they had what? I think the correct way to go about this is to say that Donald Trump is undermining the Ukrainian position, which he is, okay? But ultimately, we are in favor, as the Democrats, we are in favor of a managed negotiation that will put an end to all of this bloodshed. Like, that is, if you say that, if you say something along those lines, you can at least, like, I guess, kind of take credit, but not really. Then they can just like turn around and be like, well, you had all the power to stop this and you didn't. I don't know, man. I really think that being the party of war is not good for the Democrats. Like, being seen as the party of war is not good for the Democrats. It is a losing position. Isn't everything Trump saying about Ukraine sort of true? No. There is some brutal honesty there in terms of like who gets the control, who holds all the cards. America does. Okay. In terms of brutal honesty, we want your minerals. That's brutal honesty. Okay. That's just saying the quiet part out loud. But as far as like Zelensky is a dictator and he has a 4% approval rating and he sucks dick and he doesn't get to have a say in this process, and then like openly optically undermining him in general is, or even claiming that he is responsible for Vladimir Putin invading his country. It's all of that stuff is completely incorrect. It is ridiculous. Yeah. I think it's still born out of the same issue, though, with the Democratic Party. For the past 4 years, Americans saw what the Democrats did in terms of Ukraine, what the Democrats did in terms of Gaza in the last year. And it's very difficult to just like go back on that out of nowhere. And they had bipartisan support for both, mind you, okay? They love that shit. The Republicans love that shit. Now they're turning around and just staying quiet as Donald Trump does his thing.
To that.
You know, I guess all of those Democrats were perfectly fine with seeing hundreds of thousands of people literally on a daily, weekly, monthly basis in a meat grinder of a war that has turned into an endless war under Joe Biden, who could not define success and basically said, as long as it takes, as much as it takes, no matter how many people die, no matter how much death and destruction, because I haven't heard any one of them actually present a plan to bring this war to an end. President Trump has done that, and we're going to execute it.
Right. To me, this reminds me of Lion Ted and De Sanctimonious. When the president locks horns and gets angry, that's what he does. But he also could put his hand out and say, let's move forward. That's where this reminds me of.
And, and the same ones that are screaming for peace and are screaming for a ceasefire over in Gaza, I guess are screaming for endless war in Europe. It's nonsensical. This is a common sense plan. They may not like it, but we're going to drive it forward, and everybody will stop squawking when the fighting ends.
When the Russians say we met with President, we met with you and Marco Rubio, and we got the sense that the U.S. is with us, are they wrong?
Well, I think our interests are aligned in stopping the war. They have different reasons, of course, in the Ukrainians. There's still all kinds of disagreement that we need to pull both sides together. But, Brian, that was a historic first step, and it started with that historic phone call that President Trump had with Putin and the confidence-building measure that we had with the release of Mark Fogel. Remember, that was just a week ago, Brian. I don't think time is on anyone's side, and we're going to move forward full speed ahead to drive this war to an end. And then we can talk about broader geostrategic relationships. And that's the conversation we had with the Russians, but it's a first of many to come.
Would it be great if the Russians handed back the 20,000 children they stole from the Ukrainian families, renamed them and handed them out to Russians? Would they ever agree to give the children back?
You know, we talked about what we're going to have to do in terror.
See, Brian Kilme has the uniparty position here. Okay, notice how he's not attacking Donald Trump, but he's still saying the same exact things that Democrats and Republicans also agree upon. And by the way, there's truth to what he's saying here as well in terms of like a conditional negotiation. It's not that Brian Kilme is woke. It's just that, you know, he's trying to get to Trump to the best of his ability. If you were to ask these dudes behind closed doors, I'm willing to bet that they have a way more hardline stance towards, like, they want endless support for Ukraine and abso-fucking-lutely would be on board with it if Donald Trump were to come out and advance the exact same agenda.
Territory, what we're going to have to do in security guarantees, what we're going to have to do kind of in the future broader security arrangement, the future of our relationship, and those kinds of exchanges, prisoner exchanges, children, what's happened in some of these areas. It's been a devastating war. All of that, should be resolved, and we are trying to resolve. But for everyone to just throw their hands up and say, well, we don't like what they're doing, but we don't have a plan either, is just unacceptable. But shouldn't surprise anybody in Washington, D.C.
And we agree. I think everyone now agrees. The war's got to come to an end, and President Trump is in the perfect place to do it. Hopefully these former friends...
Russia's pretty weak right now. NATO should finish the job. Yeah, you are Mr. Fantasy.
People would be future friends again, Zelensky and Trump, of course. Michael Waltz, great job. Thanks so much for getting up with us this morning.
It's like stepping back in time. Many mining facilities across the country haven't been upgraded since the 1930s. Unlike the agricultural sector, which is the country's biggest money spinner, mining represents a small slice of the country's earnings, so there's been no incentive to invest in infrastructure. Until now.
Is Trump's goal to turn Russia against China? I think it's to try to undermine the Russian-Chinese allegiance for sure. But more importantly, I think he just wants this. He wants all of this. He wants to pick the scraps of Ukraine for his buddies. That's what he wants. I mean, he's pretty open about it, too.
To $16 trillion worth of rare earth minerals are said to sit encased in rock across Ukraine. US President Donald Trump has his eyes on it, and Ukraine wants US help to develop it. The mining business is excited about the future. One CEO in Kyiv told me that getting investment on favorable terms is key.
American government, in frames of this deal, should understand that we have only basis for that investment. Because in any case, everybody who want to work here in Ukraine, who want to use Ukrainian natural resources, should invest lots of money for lots of time.
Even if there is a negotiated end to the war and Russia returns
Donald Trump is live with Tiger Woods
territories and Ukraine
honoring Black History Month. That's crazy. Dude, what the fuck? Oh my God. Okay, let's just get back to this.
favorable
Sorry.
deal that includes millions, perhaps billions of dollars upgrading facilities like this. There is still a longer-term issue, and that is the environmental impact. The mining sector is already a major polluter in Ukraine, and environmentalists are worried that that could get worse.
Of course, we understand that the production of useful mines is extremely harmful to the environment, as a result of which the ecological environment is damaged, ecosystems are damaged, especially if the production is carried out directly in an open way. All these negative factors have a negative effect on the environment.
No one's currently looking closely at what the environmental impact as a result of a greatly expanded mining sector could be. The conversation currently all revolves around how the potential trillions of dollars will help Ukraine, and that conversation has a price tag. According to US President Donald Trump, it's $500 billion in return for rare earth minerals, and that's not a deal that Ukraine thinks is reasonable. Imran Khan, Al Jazeera, Central Ukraine.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest.
Dude.